of a conquering army. Taking this into account, Cromwell wisely decided to move his artillery train by ship when he deployed his army south from Drogheda to his next target, Wexford. Wexford was a walled town located within a harbor at the mouth of the River Slaney. Entry to the harbor was guarded by Rosslare Fort, which Cromwell's cavalry commander took with little resistance. To the southeast of town, on high ground just outside the walls, stood Wexford Castle. By the time Cromwell's army arrived at Wexford's walls, the Irish weather had whipped up a cold, windy storm, turning his encampment into a quagmire and preventing his guns from being offloaded in the harbor. With winter fast approaching, Wexford would make ideal quarters for his ailing troops. So Cromwell would need a repeat of Drogheda, a swift campaign using artillery to breach the walls and a fierce assault to seize the town.
By now, of course, the inhabitants of Wexford have heard about Drogheda and don't want to have that experience.
The governor of the town was under pressure from the townspeople to surrender, but he was waiting to see if the royalist general Ormond would deliver reinforcements. The governor tried to stall Cromwell through negotiation.
But Cromwell preferred to let his artillery do the talking. When the weather allowed, he began to offload his big guns and emplace them here on this piece of high ground south of town, known today as Treespan Rock. His first target, Wexford Castle.
On the same day, Ormond arrived with reinforcements. Ormond himself stayed outside the town to watch the proceedings from the north bank of the river. His heart must have sunk as Cromwell's gunners opened up with 8 cannons and 2 mortars, firing 100 shots in all.
Unlike traditional cannon, which fired a solid shot at a relatively flat trajectory, mortars, like this one, fired a hollow shot at a relatively high trajectory. The idea was to lob a projectile beyond enemy fortifications or into the center of an enemy formation. Now, this is a relatively small mortar, but Cromwell's gunners had mortars like this that could fire projectiles of up to 500 pounds, and they fired several types of shells. Some were for use against fortifications, some were anti-personnel. Now, the shell that a mortar fires is not solid at all. In fact, it's hollow and filled with gunpowder. It's detonated by a separate fuse, the idea being to make sure that the projectile detonates when it's on the target and not before. Now, Cromwell's gunners took to calling these shells grenados, but the Irish referred to them as bombs, which is the first use of what's now become a relatively common word.
Again, medieval Irish stone proved no match for modern English lead. By noon, several breaches had been made in the castle walls. Once again, the town governor opened negotiations with Cromwell for a ceasefire. While this was happening, the commander in charge of Wexford Castle opened his gates and turned over the keys to Cromwell's men. Chaos ensued. Another rout was on.
This takes place while Cromwell is in negotiations with the leaders of Wexford for the surrender of the town. Cromwell knows nothing of this, and therefore the attack on Wexford takes place, if you like, almost without his knowledge.
This market area is known as the Bull Ring. It was here in 1649 that the defenders of Wexford were slaughtered. There was no stopping the Cromwellian onslaught.
So again, we have the killing not only of the entire garrison, but also of civilians, as happened at Drogheda. His only comment on this after it's taken place, again, is that this is the righteous judgment of God on these barbarous wretches for their behaviour during the 1640s.
Cromwell's army left the town too ruined to serve as winter quarters.